Hi, welcome to IAC Videos. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered why you're going through what you're going through? Well, as a Christian, you know that God has a plan for your life. And as a non-Christian, even if you don't believe, it still applies to you. You know, God does have a plan. And you ever wondered, why is this happening to me? Why am I going through all this? Why me? I've often thought about that. But if you know any elderly, I want to try and encourage you today with these words. If you know of any elderly, you've listened to an elderly person, especially those that have been through World War I and World War II. I know they're getting old now and they're dying off one by one, but if you've ever listened to them, you'll find that when you do, and if you're in a group of people, you'll find that people listen with utter respect. And they listen in quietness. You know, we had a guy at our church, an elderly gentleman, he was in World War II. And he got up on stage and he spoke about the D-Day landing. And you could have heard a pin drop in the church. You know, everybody sat there and listened to him with utter respect as he relayed the story of how on the D-Day landings he got out of his craft and they all jumped into the water, but his feet didn't touch the bottom, didn't touch the sand. And it was shocking to hear him say that his feet landed on the dead soldiers that had gone before him, and they walked across them to get onto the dry land and to get onto the sand and to fight the battle. But everybody listened with utter respect. And why did they do that? Because they know that, or they knew that he'd been there, he'd seen it, and he'd done it. And his emotions and his feelings and thoughts were all laid bare, but people understood by what he was saying. And they listened because he'd been there. You know, what they're going through may not be exactly the same as what he went through, but sometimes they probably have had some of the similar feelings, the terror, the anxiety of things that they're going through, but they listened nonetheless. And they just listened with utter respect. And, you know, what I want to encourage you today, the real reason for this message is that as a Christian, as I already said, God has a plan for your life. And God will use everything that you go through to move you forward, to toughen you up, and to change the way you think. Now, as a Christian, you would understand that God knows everything, and God knows who you're going to meet, and He knows who you're going to meet in your future. Now let me ask you something. As I've already spoken about the elderly gentleman in our church, you know, when you're going through things, when you're going through situations that you don't understand, and you are having thoughts and you're wondering, why is it all happening to me? Isn't it good to hear somebody say, I've been where you've been? And I would ask you, which would you rather listen to? Somebody who's been in the position that you've been in, through the same things that you've been in, or a well-meant counsellor or therapist who has got no idea what you're going through, but they're just trained to help you to get through it and to deal with it, but they've got no idea what you're feeling, against somebody who says, I know where you've been, I've been through that exact similar position, or a situation similar to that. Which one do you think you would listen to? Well, some of you may turn around and say, well, I'd listen to the counsellor because they're trained. Well, fair dues. But I think most of you, I'd hazard a guess that most of you would listen to somebody who's been there before. Because it's a human thing that we want to know that somebody else understands where we're at. We want somebody else to understand what we're going through, and maybe give us a glimmer of hope, just a word of encouragement. And it's always good to listen to them. So I would hazard a guess that most of you watching this video would probably turn around and say, somebody that's been there, seen it, and done it. So the real reason for this video, the reason why I'm doing this, is the words of encouragement that I want to give you are this. If you wonder why you're going through it, well, especially as a Christian, I understand this, that God knows what I'm going through. God knows every situation I'm going through, and He is there for me. And He will allow me to go through these things to toughen me up, to change the way I think, to change the way I feel. But at the end of the day, life is life. Bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people. It isn't a bed of roses. It's not, a bowl of cherries. Life happens. It rains on the righteous and it rains on the unrighteous. But God knows what I'm going through, and He's going to be there with me. And the reason for that is that He will help me to get through it. He will help me to become a better person. And like I said earlier on, later on in my life, it could be next week, next month, next year, or when I'm a bit older. But God wants me to become like the friend I spoke to you about in my church. He wants me to go through those situations because He knows that people that I'm going to meet are going to be in those very same situations. They're going to have the doubts, the worries, the fears. And as a Christian, He wants me to be the sort of person that is willing to help them. Now, here's the thing. Like I said about my friend in church, when he relayed the story, did it change what happened years ago? No. Did it change how he felt? No. But he still went through it, came through it and lives today. But by the grace of God, he relays his story to help someone else. And that's my word of encouragement for you today. If ever you've wondered why you're going through it, especially, like I say, especially as a Christian, if you ever wonder, why am I going through this, Lord? Why is it happening to me? And like I've already said, hey, life is life. God never promises you an easy walk through the park. What He does say is there will be trials and tribulations. You will go through things. As Jesus went through His life and everybody was against Him, He says, you will go through the same things. People will persecute you as they persecuted me. But He says, I will always be there, and I'll always be there with you, and I'll always get you through it. So that later on, if your heart is right with me, later on, when you meet up with that person that really needs that help, through the experience that you've been through the situation you've been through all that's happened, you'll relay your story and you'll help them. So that's what I want to encourage you today. Maybe, just maybe, one of the reasons, not the reason, but one of the reasons why you're going through what you're going through is God just wants you, He knows your future, and He wants to change the way you think, the way you feel. But later on, He wants you to be like my elderly friend, to relay a story and change somebody's life. It won't change how you feel. It won't change what you've been through. It won't change all the feelings and all the anxieties and worries that you went through. It won't change anything, but it will make a difference. You see, that's what Jesus is always on about. Everything that happened to Him, He always was willing to change other people's views and to help and to continue helping. And that's what God wants for us in our future, to be that sort of person who will stand there and say, hey, I've been through this. I've been where you've been. I've felt some of the things you're feeling. But here's my answer, and I'm willing to help you. So I hope that has blessed you today. God bless you, and look forward to many more of these videos. See you soon. Bye-bye now.